what are the most common scenarios where interviewers lose trust in candidates in job interviews? The first interviewing technique would be that of a deep dive. So basically, the interviewer would ask you a ton of follow-up and challenge questions in order to deep-proof your expertise and, maybe test your ownership, seniority, and maybe if you're bluffing, right? So this is why it's extremely important when you prepare your stories, especially if they are more than a few years old, that you make some brain dumps with some all the relevant details so that you can remember them during a job interview. Because if you cannot remember some details about your stories, that will raise suspicion with respect to ownership, your ownership of that decision-making process, for example, right? The other common scenario when performing a deep dive is seniority. So for instance, if you're applying for a hands-off PM role, when the interviewer asks you a ton of follow-up and challenge questions, if you would be answering those with some very deep details that would be associated with a hands-on role, that might also signal a mismatch in seniority. So you'd want to prepare these things in advance as well. Last but not least, bluffing. For example, if you introduce yourself with some metrics that you did not fully own, a skilled interviewer might deep dive your metrics for the remainder of the job interview, right? So this also happens, right? The second scenario where interviewers are scanning for trust issues in job interviews would be the classic interpersonal, the conflict questions. Tell me about a time when you received tough feedback from your manager, would be the most common interview question for these things. Now, why would this be so efficient to scan for trust issues? The most common scenario is candidates unintentionally blaming their previous co-workers, their manager, their previous companies, and so on. They would get on a negative tone, so to speak, on these things. And if you speak negatively about your past co-workers, chances are you're also going to speak negatively about the people you're going to work with in your future role, which is never a good thing. Or another less common scenario, but still a very dangerous one, is people who have conflicts that they cannot really get over with, or conflicts that they cannot really do them no good, so to speak, if communicating during job interviews. So long story short, prepare to answer conflict questions well, because this is also a cause for concern in a trust issue, so to speak. Right, now let's move on to the more cosmetic side of things here. I previously said that bluffing is a trust breaker. Of course it is, but especially in today's environment, trying to come across as genuine as possible should be a top priority for most candidates. And the primary reason why I'm saying this is because there is, this perception of the more you brand yourself, the more you polish your delivery, the more you polish your scene, so to speak, the better you'll come across. Well, in my experience, it's not the candidates with a 4K video camera, it's not the candidates with professional sound quality that pass these job interviews. So I would focus on coming across as genuine as possible, even if that would mean to stay a bit scrappy. Even communicating your ideas, so long you score reasonably well on clarity of thought, there's no need for you to add an extra polish to that delivery, so to speak, because it will not play good to the trust factor, right? And on the same note, if you want to experiment with things such as AI rewarding your answers, my advice would be to first role play those answers. Do a role play session, try to see how they sound, and if you're happy with how they sound, then yes, you might also want to go during the job interview. But if you want to try to jump on new trends, be a little bit skeptical, especially in today's environment where there's a lot of pressure and tension and lack of trust, okay, which is the topic that I'm advising you here, right? And finally, last but certainly not least, how do you build trust in job interviews? Just quickly, it all starts with the rapport. If you have rapport with your interviewer, they will trust you more than otherwise. Also because you will understand the way they're communicating and what they will signal during that job interview, right? Listen and follow closely to their often subtle signals during job interviews, because you'll be surprised how many interviewers actually try to help you during this job interviews to get you back on track, or to signal that, hey, yes, it's good what you say, please go on, continue with these things. What happens is most candidates would not understand, would not maintain a little bit of eye contact with the interviewer, so they would never receive these signals, these tips, so to speak, that also, trust builders, right? And if you want to try something new at the end of your interview or after your interview, if you feel like you raise a little bit of suspicion with some of your stories and you have a great story bank as well, I would suggest you to share your stories with them. Right? Could be at the end of the interview, could be after the interview, but also sharing your stories with them may also signal trust in a job interview. Okay, so these were my tips. I hope you found them useful, and thank you very much for watching.